The story of Eskom is a complex tale of inefficiency, corruption, and political power plays. In our last episode, we broke down the company's crippling $25 billion debt and how it is putting South Africa's economy at risk. But behind this financial burden lies something even harder to accept: the staggering corruption and mismanagement that accelerated the company's fall. In this second episode of our three-part series, we're diving into the dark truth of Eskom's story. How fraud, collusion, and theft drained billions from South Africa's most vital power provider. Let's get to it. Corruption at Eskom is costing millions to South Africans every month. Former CEO Andre de Ruyter estimates that corruption drains around $55 million from the power utility. To put it into perspective, that's $660 million lost to corruption every year, close to 3% of Eskom's debt. To make matters worse, that figure might be on the conservative side. Some estimates suggest losses as high as $77 million each month. Over the course of a year, it would cost the company around $924 million. Every rand lost to corruption is a rand that can't be used to repair aging infrastructure, fund renewable energy projects, or simply keep the lights on. Eskom generates most of its power from coal-fired plants, which makes coal an essential resource for the nation's energy security. But the utility's coal supply chain is under attack from organized crime, and this is taking a huge toll on the company. So, how exactly are criminal networks impacting Eskom? Cartels have systematically infiltrated the coal supply chain, exploiting it at nearly every stage to make a profit. Their first tactic is called coal swapping. High-quality coal, carefully selected for use in Eskom's power stations, is intercepted right after it leaves the mines, just before it even reaches the plants. This valuable coal is replaced with substandard material or sometimes useless debris like rocks, which are non-combustible. The result? The coal that Eskom receives is nowhere near the quality needed for smooth and efficient energy production. And the sabotage doesn't stop there. At some mining sites, corrupt officials team up with sampling teams to create fake coal samples. These samples make it seem as if the coal meets Eskom's standards, when in reality, the supply falls far short. Essentially, Eskom ends up receiving poor quality coal, while the criminals profit from selling off the high quality supply elsewhere. Another major way corruption has infiltrated the company is through collusion and contract manipulation. Investigations have revealed that Eskom management has, in many cases, worked directly with various suppliers to manipulate contracts for personal gain. The company has been paying grossly inflated prices for routine goods and services, often 10 times more than their actual market rates. One outrageous example is the purchase of a simple mop, which should cost only $6 but was billed at an astonishing $11,000. Another purchase includes knee guards marked up to $4,000. These price hikes may sound absurd, but they've become routine, showing just how ingrained procurement fraud has become within Eskom. But what allows all this to happen? The company's procurement system itself has significant structural flaws. These issues go back over a decade, starting with a costly initiative known as the Back to Basics program, which aimed to address operational inefficiencies but failed to curb the real problem: poor oversight and accountability. The procurement process at Eskom has been left vulnerable, allowing fraudulent contracts to pass without proper review. One family saw this and started to drain billions of dollars from the company. The story of corruption at Eskom cannot be told without addressing the central role of the Gupta family. In South Africa, that name is synonymous with one of the country's biggest corruption cases, known as the state capture scandal. With close ties to former President Jacob Zuma, the Gupta family orchestrated a sophisticated scheme to control and loot Eskom. For nearly a decade, the aim was simple: secure lucrative contracts through manipulation, fraud, and political influence. While the allegations against the Gupta family are staggering, it's crucial to understand that they didn't operate in isolation. They built an extensive network of influence and loyalty within the company. It included strategic appointments of loyalists in key positions at Eskom, such as former CEO Brian Molefe and CFO Anoj Singh. These individuals played pivotal roles in facilitating the Gupta's access to lucrative contracts, particularly through their company, Tegeta Exploration and Resources. Tegeta gained access to Eskom's procurement system, allowing the Guptas to push through contract after contract, all engineered for profit. And in 2016, one of the most infamous contracts linked to the Guptas was pushed through. Tegeta bought the Optimum coal mine, and Eskom advanced $37 million to finance the acquisition of the mine. Despite its irregularities, this deal exemplified a larger pattern of corruption that permeated the utilities operations, showing how the Guptas exploited their connections to manipulate procurement processes. Yet the deal went through, granting the Guptas a long-term coal supply contract with Eskom, which enabled them to charge exorbitant rates for poor-quality coal. And the family didn't stop at coal. They used South Africa's broad-based black economic empowerment policies to position their companies under the guise of supporting economic transformation. This maneuver helped them win tenders meant for genuine suppliers, leaving Eskom with bloated contracts, poor-quality coal, and crippling costs. The scandal reached the highest levels of government, with former President Jacob Zuma allegedly manipulating Eskom's leadership to favor the Guptas. The utility company became a captive entity, bleeding billions in fraudulent contracts that benefited private interests. As corruption festered within Eskom, it manifested most dramatically in two of the largest coal-fired power plants in the world, which became breeding grounds for mismanagement and fraud. The solution to South Africa's energy crisis turned into a disaster, and corruption played a central role in it. Both Kusile and Medupi were initially budgeted at around $4.5 and $4.6 billion respectively. However, by 2020, the cost of these projects had skyrocketed. Kusile alone was estimated to be $4.3 billion over budget, and both projects were delayed by several years. Why these massive overruns? Rampant corruption, inflated contracts, and fraud. With a green light from Eskom's management, contractors were accused of inflating prices, from materials to labor. In one shocking case, the Swiss engineering firm ABB admitted to paying bribes to secure $200 million worth of contracts at Kusile. After investigations, ABB faced significant fines, paying $307 million in penalties for its role in the corruption. Other contractors like Tubular Construction Projects also came under scrutiny for securing $77 million in contracts through bribes and kickbacks. Corruption at Eskom has left an indelible mark, not only on the utility but on South Africa's economy and society as a whole. Load shedding became a daily reality, with rolling blackouts affecting businesses, schools, and households across the country. Eskom's rising debt burden has generally meant higher electricity prices for ordinary South Africans. Thankfully, the country has made significant progress in reducing load shedding in 2024, but the situation remains somewhat precarious. Investigations and reforms are underway, but the path to rebuilding Eskom and restoring energy security in South Africa will be long and difficult. From state capture to political interference at every level, Eskom's crisis cannot be fully understood without examining the political dynamics at play. In the final episode of this series, we will turn our focus to understand the political games at Eskom and how politics sabotage South Africa's biggest power supply.